The best in slot video that I posted a few days back had quite a lot of you already planning out their next steps and thinking about what builds to go for and how to build it, which is really good to see. I mean, for me personally, this is the thing that keeps the game fun, coming up with new and crazy stuff and trying to make that work. But with that, a lot of you also had quite some questions about your gear, more specifically how the gear will be changing going into patch 1.6 and how that will affect your current builds. So what I wanted to do for today is take a look at just that, take a look at the changes coming to our current gear and also let you know what to expect going into 1.6. So yeah, let's begin. To get the big elephant out of the room right away, yes, you are going to have to refarm some of your items in order to get the best possible build. Just as with most patches that dropped in the past, we will be dealing with two item categories. We will have legacy items, which is going to be the gear that you collected in patch 1.5 and before, and you're going to have the new items, which is of course the stuff that you're going to collect in patch 1.6. Now, don't get me wrong here, the developers have made some effort to change the legacy gear up quite a bit so that it isn't as bad as a whole new gear score increase. But there are certain stat rolls in the game, such as the skill haste on the chest piece or on the gloves or the extra reload speed on the holster, that you simply cannot get on the legacy items that you farmed in patch 1.5 and before. On the opposite side of things, some legacy gear will also have stuff that you cannot get on the new items. Protection from elites is a good example of that. In my best in slot video, you probably noticed how the knee pads did not have protection from elites as a possible role listed in that video. That is because the new items, the stuff that you're going to collect in patch 1.6, they cannot roll with protection from elites. However, that doesn't mean that the stat as a whole suddenly vanishes. Legacy gear that still has protection from elites rolled on it, that will remain to have protection from elites. And even legacy knee pads that don't have the item rolled on it at the moment will still be able to get it through recalibration. I don't think you would want to have protection from elite though, because to assure that none of the statistics only available on the legacy gear items are too strong, the developers have nerfed the values on all of those pretty heavily, very similar to when gear got their performance mod slots in patch 1.4. As you might remember, the legacy gear back then, they still kept all their skill attributes, it is just that the values of those got nerfed so hard that most of the time it wasn't even worth running with it. 2.5% support station range? Yeah, I'll pass on that if you don't mind. But again guys, it isn't all bad. I also said that some of the stat rolls on your current gear, that is going to be changing. So let's start by looking into that right now. First and foremost, as you all know, armor is going away. But if you currently have an armor roll on any of your gear pieces, it will simply be transformed to health. This is actually quite convenient for a lot of the players, because armor was of course best in slot to have in patch 1.5 and before that, and health is going to be best in slot in patch 1.6. That means that if you had really good pieces with a super high armor roll, something you spent a lot of time farming for, then that piece is still going to be just as good in patch 1.6. However, as some of the smarter among you guys might have already picked up as well, on the chest piece you're able to get two major attributes, and in patch 1.5 you would be able to get both armor and health as a roll there. Now in patch 1.6, armor is gonna change to health, so that would mean that if nothing was done, then some people would be running around with a double health roll, making them significantly stronger than the other players. So what the developers are doing to avoid this from ever happening is change all the current health rolls on gear to all resilience rolls. So those are the first two changes. Armor is going to change to health, and health is going to change to all resilience. It is important to note though that if you recalibrated an item, let's say you got a backpack with critical hit damage and you decided to recalibrate that to armor, that will not be changing to health in 1.6. There are some exceptions to the rule here and there, which I'll give a quick mention in just a second, but generally speaking, if you recalibrated an item with health or armor in patch 1.5, the recalibration will simply be reverted in patch 1.6, and the money that you spent on recalibrating that item will be given back to you. Basically, the item will be in a state as if you never touched it in the first place. So just to give you a quick example, we have a chest piece with exotic damage resilience and health on kill on it, but we decide to roll away health on kill and get armor instead. Now, the moment that 1.6 drops, the armor will be converted back to what it originally was, in this case, health on kill. You will get all your money back from all the rerolls, and you are allowed to recalibrate any of the stats as if you just found the item. You can of course roll the health on kill to the health if you want to keep the same type of item. So if you have a best in slot chest right now, you will still have a best in slot chest after patch 1.6 drops. It's just that you're going to have to recalibrate it again. Now, I mentioned that there are also a few exceptions to this rule, 2 actually, with the first one being the health on the knee pads. If you have a health roll recalibrated on the knee pads, then this will remain the exact same in patch 1.6. In this case, the recalibration will not be reset, you will not get your money refunded, and the only thing you will be able to reroll is that major attribute. The second exception to the rule is the health on the chest piece. If you recalibrated a health roll on the chest piece in patch 1.5, and the chest piece does not have armor on it, then this will also remain to be recalibrated as health. But I mean, who really has a chest piece with health on it but no armor? So yeah, I don't think that situation is ever gonna happen. The enemy armor damage and the damage to elite rolls, they will also be changing on the legacy gear. In my best in slot guide, you might have picked up on the fact that enemy armor damage is now a major attribute and damage to elites is now a minor. It's very simple. Massive sort of just swap these around. If you had a damage to elite roll in patch 1.5, for example on the chest piece or on the mask, well, that's simply going to be swapped around for enemy armor damage. And if you had an enemy armor damage roll, that will be swapped around for damage to elites. It's really that simple. Again, just as with the armor and with the health though, if you recalibrated either damage to elites or enemy armor damage on your gear, it will not be converted, but instead, the item will be reset of any recalibration, and the money that you spent on recalibrating, that will be given back to you. There is one thing to note about the refund system though, which might actually be a very bad thing for some people, and that is that in patch 1.6, there is a cap to how much a single recalibration can cost. A cap like this is of course very much welcome, because recalibration costs, they could get ridiculously high at times. But the money that will be refunded to the players because they have an armor roll or a damage to elite roll on their gear, this will be as if this recalibration cap has always been there. So let's say that you recalibrated an item 20 times in patch 1.5 and your item gets reset. In that case, you probably won't be getting back your money, as after 6 or so times, the cost for the recalibration will not go up anymore, and the game will refund money based on how much it would have costed you to recalibrate an item 20 times in patch 1.6. I think this is more of a technical problem. I think looking at it from a technical standpoint, there's really no way to get around this unless they would do the update in 2 steps, where the first step would refund all the money, and then the second step, that would add the recalibration cap. But I guess there are also reasons as to why this is not possible. It has to go through Microsoft and PlayStation and that kind of stuff. I don't know exactly what's going on with this, so I'm not even going to talk about it. We're going to go over to the next topic on the list, and that is that I also wanted to give a quick mention to the named weapons, or as we're going to call them in patch 1.6, exotic weapons, because all of them received quite a big overhaul, which is going to affect your current weapons. Almost every single one of these exotic weapons will be getting its very own unique talent that will be taking place in a free slot. This means that whatever you have rolled on your named weapon right there, right now, it's going to be gone. Players will also not be able to reroll this special talent in patch 1.6, as this is always going to be tied to the exotic weapon. The remaining 2 talents on the weapons, the ones that are not in the free slot, will also be randomly rerolled to something else, and the recalibration on these weapons will be 100% reset, just as with the gear, and of course you will also get a money refund for that. Now in the case of the weapons, this money will of course always come in the form of Phoenix credits. The cap for Phoenix credits will be increased to 5,000 in patch 1.6. However, I'm not sure on whether or not this means that we will be getting more than 2,000 Phoenix credits upon launch. You know, let's say you're already on 2,000 Phoenix credits, but then you get a whole lot of refunds from the weapons, and because the cap for Phoenix credits is increased, that will instantly jump up. It's a possibility, but I don't know if this is the case or not. One thing that you shouldn't do though is buy a lot of the same named weapons from the vendors, thinking that they all have a chance to roll with different talents. Because if you buy the exact same weapon, the exact same item from the same shop within the same weekly reset, then they will always have the same talents in patch 1.6. What you can do is buy one of these named weapons every single restock, every single week. But when 2 weapons are the exact same, they will also be rerolled with the exact same talent. So there's no reason to buy the Pacan 10 times within a single week. It's just gonna give you 10 of the same Pacans. So, to sum it up, there is Legacy gear and there is New gear. Legacy gear will have some stats that the New gear doesn't, and vice versa. To help players out a bit though, and make sure that they don't have to completely refarm all of their stuff, some of the stat rolls on Legacy gear will be changing. Armor will be changing into health, health will be changing into all resilience, damage to elites will change to enemy armor damage, and enemy armor damage will change to damage to elites. However, if you recalibrated any of these stats on your gear, then the recalibration will be reset, and the money will of course be refunded. And apart from some very specific exceptions to this rule, for example on the knee pads and on the body armor, which we talked about in this video, this is what you can be expecting from your gear in patch 1.6. Now, if you have any questions left, or if anything was unclear, of course you can speak up. You know where to find me, but until then, or until I have the next video ready, I guess I will see you all later. Or like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later.